Hello, everyone. Alistair Gold here. For 123 glorious minutes, Tottenham Hotspur were on top of the Premier League. It didn't last long, but it was the first time Tottenham have been at the summit of the English top flight since August 2014. So it's something to note. I think someone pointed out to me that they were briefly there for about 15 minutes. I think it was a couple of years back while everyone was waiting for another match to finish. For me, that doesn't really count. Essentially, they were there and another match still had to take place. It did. Leicester won, albeit narrowly. So Tottenham will go into this international break in second place in the Premier League, which isn't too shabby in itself. It's such a strange one. You can look at it in the sense of, and I think Mourinho, it bothers him slightly, those lost points, 2 points each against Newcastle and West Ham. You can look at it and say, 4 points, Tottenham would be a little bit clear at the top. Of course, there's kind of knock-on effects of that. They've gone away and at home, and they've got some late winners in the last 3 games or so. And you could argue that perhaps because of those messing up situations against West Ham and Newcastle, which was less their fault, but they should have put the game away by that point. They'd learnt from it, and perhaps those draws led to those late victories because they'd learnt their lessons and they ground out the wins, and they made sure it didn't happen again. So perhaps it swings and roundabouts, but it's football, isn't it? Of course, we're always going to look at that and wonder what if. That's the greatest thing of football, isn't it? Really is what ifs. But yeah, Tottenham, second place, top for a little bit. And it was, let's just put it this way. Pay-per-view audiences have had to shell out $14.95 each for the last 2 Tottenham games in the Premier League. I'd probably say that if any one team has done its utmost to destroy the notion and value of pay-per-view, it's Tottenham Hotspur. Brighton matches and West Brom games, both absolute shockers in terms of entertainment. Really, you'd have to be a die-hard Spurs fan, I think, desperate to kind of punish yourself for long periods of time to want to watch those 2 games. They were, they weren't the greatest at all. And I think, pay-per-view seems to be coming to an end soon, certainly for lockdown anyway. And I think, I'm sure Spurs didn't actually play their part in destroying it, but you know what I mean. They were some poor games, but they're the ones that people will always tell you, that old cliche that if you want to do big things in football, challenge for titles, they're the kind of games you want to win. And Tottenham kept plugging away. They weren't particularly good, certainly in an attacking sense, but they got the job done. And it's funny when you look at the form tables in terms of away form. Spurs are top of the pack, joint with Leicester, with exactly the same records. Actually, they've won 4 out of their 4, scored 13 goals, and only conceded 3. Identical records. Look at the home form. Spurs are 12th. Obviously only won the 1 match against Brighton, drew 2, and lost that opening day match against Everton. But it's strange how that kind of doesn't tell the whole picture, does it? In the way that that's football, isn't it? The away wins have been ground out, gritty, really scruffy performances that really have been completely at odds at the ridiculous, apart from Southampton and Man U, but recent ones have been completely at odds against the home performances against, West Ham and Newcastle that resulted in draws. Despite the fact that attacking-wise, Spurs were wonderful in those 2 games. They just couldn't get the job done. And it just shows you how funny football is. You can play badly and win. You can play really well and lose or draw. I don't know why. I don't need to tell you guys that. You know what football's like. What an absolute strange game it is. Give a bit of a shout out for yesterday's match, really, to Jose Mourinho, because I felt he recognised exactly really what was going wrong, and he made the changes that really altered the course of the game. I thought Giovanni Lo Celso came on, added real urgency and up to Tottenham's tempo. Obviously, he's building his fitness, and he looked quite good. Only thing I'd say is he really should have put away the chance he had. I think it was a Reguilon shot, bounced out to him, and he really should have buried it. Half volley from about 8 yards, sliced it wide, and that's probably one area of Lo Celso's play we really need to see improving. His assists and goals, especially in the Premier League, just aren't really enough. They need to be more. That will come as he gets fitter. And obviously you could argue he plays in a deeper role he's meant to, but at the moment when he's being used further up the pitch, I think he needs to do that job as well. But that's not to run him down, because I still think he's a wonderful player. Lucas Moura came on, and I felt he added some fresh legs after Bale went off, which kind of brought a bit of pace and impetus down that right-hand side. But probably the biggest change of them all, while it might not have looked at it on paper, was Carlos Vinicius making his Premier League debut. I felt he came on the pitch, and it just suddenly Spurs having two proper strikers up front. It gave Kane the real chance to come back while leaving an actual focal point up front. And suddenly you could see the West Brom defence were a little bit like, we don't really know who to mark exactly right now. And I felt that was absolutely typified in the goal, because they were concentrating so much on Vinicius running into the box as well, that when Kane, managed to get into the middle, he kind of had a little bit easier time of it, but not quite as easy as perhaps it looked on first glance, which I'll come to when we talk about Kane a bit later. But no, fair play to Mourinho on that. I felt he did very much mention after the game when we spoke to him that, his changes had made the game. He wasn't going to let that pass, but I think he deserves the credit this time, certainly. That all three of them made that little difference to the way Tottenham played, which just upped the pressure, and Tottenham obviously finally found that breakthrough. I think I want to talk really as well about the fact that what should have been a really exciting thing, the game started with, as I'm calling them right now, the terrific trio. I'm sure there's a better name out there, but it was the first time we got to see Harry Kane, Gareth Bale, and Son Heung-min all starting together in the match together. And it was so exciting. I don't know about you guys, but before the match, I was like, we're going to now see what the Premier League is, what's going to be unleashed on the Premier League. It wasn't like that, which is understandable. I get carried away. I think it's an attacking trident that's going to have to click and learn to play with each other. It's a very new thing. So obviously it's not going to hit the ground running straight away. It's very unlikely in football that sort of stuff happens, that people just have that natural partnership to begin with. I mean, we look at Son and Kane. That's a partnership that we're seeing the very best of this season. And it's taken, 3-4 seasons for that to really hit its peak. So hopefully it won't be that long, because they're three quality players. But you know what I mean? It just takes that little bit of time. And I felt that Bale and Son in particular both had much quieter games than they would have wanted to. With Bale, he looked a bit rusty again, whether that's a slight kind of overhang from having played much longer on Thursday night. But I thought on Thursday night and against Brighton, I thought he looked a bit more like the player we're hoping to see. But yeah, at the Hawthorns, little regressed slightly. But he had I think he played, was it 78 minutes or so? It's all part of his fitness. Came off with ice strapping on his ankle. Asked around, no one really at Spurs was kind of clued in much on what that all meant. That kind of gives me the impression it wasn't bad. I think because if it was bad, everyone would be talking about it. And he walked off. It wasn't like he hobbled off or anything like that. It could just be something that perhaps a problem that he sometimes has with that ankle, or it's just precautionary. My gut feeling, having looked at it and the way he was kind of acting afterwards, it's maybe more of a concern for Wales than Spurs, something that perhaps they have to think about, that perhaps he shouldn't start in the first friendly they've got, which, to be honest, he probably shouldn't anyway, as he's building up his fitness. But yeah, I'm hopeful that it's not going to be a long-term thing for Tottenham, but we will find out. You never know. It's Tottenham Hotspur. The most innocuous thing can suddenly be the worst thing. But yeah, I thought Bale was quite rusty. Little moments where he looked like he was going to burst to life, but he's still not really taking on players and surging past them. Whether that's something that's gone from his game, or whether it's something that he just doesn't feel he's got the fitness or trust in his hamstrings yet to pull off after injuries over recent years. We'll find out. Son's a funny one. Son, he's had an amazing season. Absolutely brilliant. He's probably been this season at his best, best stretch of his career, perhaps in the way he's playing. But just for some reason in the last, week, probably stretching back to Burnley. So, what's that? 2 weeks? Maybe he's been overthinking things. Whereas I've always said this about Son, when he gets in this run of form where he's not really focusing too much on what he's doing, he's just playing the beautiful natural game that Son plays. He's unbeatable. I think when he overthinks things, I think that's when you see a side of Son that is, a little bit hesitant, a little bit quiet, and doesn't quite bring what he can bring to the party. For instance, early on, Kane? Certainly on Ndombele played the ball, had this lovely little flick onto Son in the area. Son, in his natural element, would have just buried that shot. But he just took his time, he thought about it a little bit too long, and the keeper saved his effort, and all the defenders have kind of got back around as well. I mean, I don't want to be too harsh on Son because, like I say, he's been brilliant, and I don't think the service to him has been great either. Same with Bale. But obviously he scored the winner at Burnley. And Ludogorets, I think it was only 17 seconds he came off the bench and provided an assist. So on paper, you could look at 2 of the 4 games. He's made a really positive impact. I just feel his overall performances, he's set such a high standard for himself. He's probably dipped below them slightly in recent games. And, that really isn't to knock him down in any way because he's the joint top Premier League scorer with 8 goals. Scored 10 goals, 5 assists in 13 matches. He's had a brilliant season. I just wonder whether sometimes Son does this in that he goes on a brilliant run of performances, goals, assists, and things like that. And then he just has a little period where perhaps he's tired. Perhaps he just needs a little bit of a recharge. And maybe that will come on his international break. I mean, South Korea, I don't think, have a match until next weekend. And the good thing about it, I think they're playing Mexico and Qatar. And both of those matches are being played in Austria. So he's not heading off around the world. So he can kind of rest up. Doesn't need to be doing lots of travelling all over the shop. And that's probably what he needs, just to kind of take a breath and kind of go back to where he was. Because like I say, I don't want to criticise Son anyway because he's been brilliant this season. But just the last few games, just dipped a little bit where below what he'd probably want to be like in the levels and everything. And I think if there was one player of the trio who did the job, there's no denying it's Harry Kane. Again, like Bale and Son, didn't have the service particularly from those behind him or from Bale and Son themselves, but still got the winner. 150th Premier League goal. He's done it in 218 Premier League appearances, which is obscene when you think about it. That is incredible. And I was looking at at his stats last night after the match. He's either scored a goal or set up another goal for someone else in every single match he's started since the game at Everton on the opening day. It's incredible output. You look at it, 13 goals and 10 assists in his 14 appearances this season, 23 direct goal involvements in 14 games. And I wrote down this stat because I want to remember it. If you actually look at starts, his last 14 starts under Jose Mourinho, 17 goals and 10 assists. So 27 direct goalless involvements in 14 starts. Honestly, the man is a machine. And his goal, the reason I wanted to talk about this in kind of isolation rather than mention it earlier when I spoke about Vinicius' involvement was when you watch it back, Kane's header is done under pressure. He's being grabbed and pulled by the defender. It makes no difference. You watch it in slow-mo. Any other striker, perhaps, other than maybe a big bustling one, in that scenario would have been being pulled all over the place. Kane is still doing the exact motion he wants to do. Nothing about the defenders pulling or trying to push down on him is doing anything to stop his movement. And it's a lovely little dinked header. Other strikers might have got too much on it, knocked it over the bar, might have knocked it downwards. He's just almost done like a delicate little chip or a little lofted ball with his head. He's a phenomenal player. What is he, 27 years old now? I think we're seeing peak Harry Kane. I won't lie, there's a part of me that loves the fact that there were so many people and also, some journalists as well were starting to write him off and say he was finished and saying that you were seeing a very different Harry Kane now because he was having to adjust to all the injuries and things he's had. If we're seeing a different Harry Kane, it's because it's a better Harry Kane. He's obscene what he's doing on a football pitch. We talk about And that was one thing with Bale I noticed as well. Bale's work rate, if you're going to give him one credit from yesterday, I felt his work rate was much better. There was a lot more tracking back. Kane just does that all the time. His fitness levels are obscene. Even Mourinho pointed out at the end of the game, in the last 5 minutes, Harry Kane was acting as like a number 6, like a Højbjerg role, sitting in front of the defence, shielding it and making tackles and interceptions. He's an incredible player, and one of Spurs' own. I was going to say Spurs are fortunate to have him. That's probably unfair because they made him essentially. Harry Kane obviously made himself, but he came through at Spurs on the whole, and he's just a tremendous player. I think I just noticed something new about him every single week I watch him, a new little facet of his play, and it's thrilling as a journalist to be able to watch a player like that. I feel fortunate to watch a player. I'm not going to compare him directly to the likes of Ronaldo and Messi because, I think they are just incredible players that have been in a league of their own. But I do feel fortunate to watch him and just watch this player growing as well as a player and learning. He soaks up how to play the game in every match and comes back stronger in the next game and more well-rounded. Phenomenal player. Really, really is. Who else did I watch? A little word on Tanguy Ndombele. I put a tweet out about just before half-time yesterday where I said, I feel like in a bit of a drab half, he's probably been the one ray of light for Tottenham in terms of attacking creativity and stuff. That got, I'd say, majority of people agreed, but it got some criticism, and I always kind of want to talk through that because I don't take it personally. I never do, unless people are silly and abusive, which is just weird. But certainly I'm always willing to talk through stuff like that because some people are saying, oh, but he lost the ball a lot, and how can you say that? That's incredible. He hasn't been that good at all. What I'd say about him, I did think he was sloppy in some of his passing, but what I would also add the caveat is that's probably because he was the only midfielder really trying to make those passes, those attacking players. Mourinho said it after the game when I asked him about the match. He said too many players were playing safe. Ndombele wasn't. He was trying to take risks, and with risk-taking playmaker types, that's what will happen. They will lose the ball more than other people. For instance, Højbjerg or Winks, players like that, their actual overall pass percentage will be ridiculous. But that's because the bulk of what they do, their passing is safer, short passes. I thought Ndombele tried to make things happen. That moment for Son early on we spoke about, that was on Ndombele. Ndombele did a lovely flick into his path. He was playing through balls. He was trying to make things happen. There was one cross he put in from the right that, until Doherty's one late on, was probably the best cross of the game. It was superb. I think his fitness is improving a lot. I watched from my seat. I don't know whether you see this on TV or not as well as when you're in the stadium, but he was doing a lot of pressing, a lot of chasing down players, a lot of harassing. And what he's doing now, which is quite interesting, is when I was watching the games in recent months, Mourinho was shouting at him to do that, instructing him to do that. Now he's doing it a little bit more naturally, knowing the positions he needs to take up and when he needs to press. And his fitness is making him able to do that. He came off in the second half with an ankle knock, which, oh my God, when he went down, I thought it was the worst thing ever. He was really in a lot of pain for a long time and shrieking, and it didn't look good. But I think the fact that he played on for a little while and then had to make the most unfortunate, when he was subbed, he went off the far side and he had to do this really slow trudge around the entire West Brom half, all the way back around the pitch to the Tottenham bench. To be honest, it was slow, but I felt he was moving fine. Again, as I said with Bale, it's Tottenham Hotspur, so they may look at it and find that his legs are about to fall off or something. Hopefully not. That's probably incredibly extreme, but he looked fine to me. It didn't look like something that's going to be an issue, and he's not going away with France, so if he needs a few days to rest it up, it might swell up slightly. He's got a lot of time. But I just felt people are a little bit harsh on him. There's this, I don't know, whether it becomes fashionable to be unfashionable, if you see what I mean. So a lot of people are praising on Ndombele now, and I do wonder whether sometimes it becomes fashionable on social media to then criticise him because everyone else is praising him. Possibly, I don't know. That could be very unfair, and it could be that people genuinely thought he wasn't very good. I felt, I think I gave him a 6 in my player ratings. I didn't think he was fantastic, but I felt he was trying to do the things that were asked of him. And like I say, could have had an early assist for Son. There were a couple of times he played through balls that probably should have resulted in more as well. I felt he was trying to do his job. Who else I want to talk about? The defence. The defence. How can we forget the defence? This is the thing. I focus so much on the attacking side of Tottenham's game that we actually kind of forget that the defence has been so much more solid recently. Part of that may be resulting in the the lesser attacking performances, and this was something we saw after the restart last season, that Mourinho was really focusing on shoring up the defence, and actually it had a bit of a negative impact on what was happening in front of it. But that doesn't mean you can't praise the defence. For Eric Dier, 250th appearance for Spurs, I thought he was phenomenal. I don't even go as far to say it might have been one of his best performances as a centre-back. He was superb. Honestly, nothing really got by him, whether it was on the floor, whether it was in the air. He made a terrific header off his own goal line. I felt he was superb. And obviously a guy that's had criticism, but I felt he really led the line as well. And yeah, there was just so many times where I'd see him coming across and mopping up behind behind Sergio Reguilon. I thought he was phenomenal, and I thought Alderweireld was very composed as well. I was quite surprised, to be honest, to see the two of them making 3 starts, each of them in 7 days. Because obviously Eric Dier has recent hamstring problems. Toby Alderweireld had a very serious hamstring problem a couple of years back, which he's always been managed carefully since then. So fair play to be able to manage all 3 games, get 2 clean sheets in those 3 games, just conceding 1 in all 3. And they both played very well. They look to be the first choice partnership now. Davinson Sanchez looks to have completely dropped off the radar at the moment. He was there at the Hawthorns. He just wasn't in the matchday squad. Joe Rodon chosen ahead of him on the bench. So I don't know entirely what's gone on there. I know some people have issues with Sanchez. I will always say the same thing about him. I feel that he does have one silly mistake a game in him, which obviously will infuriate Mourinho. But I do think probably up to about fortnight ago, I still felt overall he was probably Tottenham's most consistent centre-back. And people will disagree with that. But I feel that, those silly mistakes aside, as long as they're not happening in dumb areas, I do feel that his overall play has been pretty good. But I'm absolutely no expert when it comes to defensive stuff. Mourinho, that's his forte. And if he feels that Sanchez has dropped down the pecking order, then, you can't argue with the defensive performances in recent games, in the last week, certainly. So, we'll see what happens there with him. Sergio Reguilon was a mixed game. I'd say first half he was quite sloppy, his passing, and he was out of position a fair few times. And like I say, Dier kept having to come over and look out for him and sort out what was going in where the places he should have been. But I felt second half he improved greatly. He really did. He was... the thing with Reguilon's game is his pace will get him out of a lot of issues. And it's important that he doesn't rely on that, but he does know he can use that. And I felt in the second half he balanced it better. He got forward at the right times and was able to get back as well. Højbjerg, you'll notice often, he's starting to do the old Eric Dier thing of stepping back and almost making a back 3 at times, just to give a little bit more cover for Reguilon and Doherty at times, who we'll come on to in a minute. But no, I thought Reguilon improved as it went on. He's still a fantastic talent, even that first half side. And I think that's the best thing about him. I've noticed that we saw in the first half against Chelsea in the Carabao Cup, when he made the mistake, he learned from it. And I felt yesterday he learned from it, or took on board instructions, whatever Mourinho told him at half time. 23 years old, honestly, he's going to be phenomenal. Very exciting player. But yeah, no, I wanted to talk about Matt Doherty as well. I feel he's been really kind of harshly judged already. Even yesterday, people saying that he wasn't playing well. I must have been watching a different game. I think it depends what you're looking for. I think if you're looking for the Matt Doherty that was promised when he joined, the one that joined from Wolves, then I guess, yes, you'd probably be disappointed, because so would he, because he hasn't been able to be that Matt Doherty because he's playing in a completely different role. And apologies if I said this before, you've heard me say this before, but essentially he was coming in as a Sergio Aurier replacement in that advanced right back role, which was almost like a wing back winger because of the way Spurs switched into a back 3. Then Sergio Reguilon happened. Spurs have loved Reguilon for a while, but didn't actually expect to sign him, and then suddenly they were able to. That obviously came after Doherty had signed, and it changed their plans. So Doherty now, rather than having a back three to operate alongside, meaning he can bomb up the pitch with little defensive responsibility, now has someone who is constantly up and down the pitch on the other side, meaning he has to kind of sit back quite a lot. So that's meant that Doherty has had to essentially retrain to be a right back, because he spent a long time at Wolves as, I'd even go as far to say, almost more than a wing back. He was almost a winger, a goal-scoring winger for Wolves. So he's admitted it himself a few weeks back. It's taken a lot of relearning, a lot of adjustment. It's a very different role with lots more defending to be done, and a lot of fitness work, because this is the other thing I feel people forget. He had no pre-season. He had a late season with Wolves because of the Europa League, then came back, and on his first, technically was still on holiday, signed for Spurs and went straight off into international duty Republic of Ireland. No pre-season at all. So he's having to have a pre-season during the season, build up his fitness, all while adapting to a new role that is so much more defensively inclined than he's been used to. And obviously you've got Bale up there, and or Son at times, or Lucas, or whoever's on that side at that time, which means that whereas at Wolves, he had the freedom of that right flank to get up and down it. Now he's very much having to sit back and be very disciplined. And I think he's being really disciplined. I felt a lot of yesterday he made really important interceptions and clearances and tackles. And I think people are kind of disappointed in the rare moments that he's able to properly get forward. He's maybe not doing exactly what they ask or what they want from him. And I think there's an element of fear. There's an element of, I need to get back. I can't be left out of position. Some people calling for Serge Aurier. What I'd possibly say about Aurier, whereas I thought he was fantastic, certainly against Man U at Old Trafford, Aurier would still bomb on. Aurier will still fly up that pitch and then expect Sissoko or Alderweireld to come across and cover him. Doherty doesn't really do that. He's, I'd say, much more disciplined. And I think that's led to the defensive, that's been a part of the defensive performances. When it came to the crunch as well, Matt Doherty put in a brilliant ball to Kane. You watch that back, I wouldn't even say it's a cross. It's a very clever playmaker, perfectly judged ball right into the path of Kane. So kind of all he has to do, albeit, as I said, under pressure, is just turn his head and flick it onwards. It's a lovely ball. It's exactly what's asked of him. And I hope the confidence of that first assist for him in a Spurs shirt will just give him that little boost he needs, because Mourinho clearly trusts him. He's started 10 of the 14 matches since he's arrived, Doherty. So he is his first choice. Serge Aurier won't be happy, but he is the first choice. Now it's just about continuing to get that fitness, continuing to develop to be a right back again, which is something he probably hasn't done much since he was a younger player. And I think he's doing well. I think people have come in and expecting to have another Reguilon on the right-hand side, but you can't have them doing that on the both sides. And if Reguilon is bombing on, essentially Doherty's going to have to be the one who tucks in a bit and stays disciplined. You can't have them both. Walker and Rose, we kind of remember them as these flying fullbacks. But essentially, as I said, that was because Dier was dropping back. Højbjerg will do that, but he won't do it as much as Dier because he's not a natural kind of in that role, as we're now seeing that Dier can play as a centre-back. So, yeah, one to watch out for, I think, with him. I do feel people are being a little bit harsh on him. The other two players I want to talk about, Hugo Lloris, I feel he was pivotal. I'm glad Mourinho mentioned him after the match. I feel he made that big save from Grant, from his header, from I think it was a corner, wasn't it? Which was such a crucial, pivotal time in the match. Essentially, by pushing that over the bar, led really to Spurs being then having a foundation to push on and win the game themselves. And I think it really needs to be noted how Lloris, since the restart, I'd say, from last season, has been such a consistent, really good goalkeeper again at the top level of his game. And he's got that thing which the top goalkeepers have of not having to do much during a match. But when he is, he's absolutely nailing what he has to do. Had one slight iffy moment very early in the game when he decided to punch it, which I didn't understand why. He was under no pressure. But other than that, I think he's been fantastic. And the thing I look at, maybe one way of looking at it is he Worked for almost 6 years with Tony Jimenez, Pochettino's goalkeeping coach. He was a superb goalkeeping coach. Lloris had some amazing moments under him. Obviously became a World Cup winner during his time with him. So I'm certainly not saying in any way that he didn't have a great partnership with Jimenez, or he didn't bring on his game massively. He did. But what I would probably say is having the chance to work with Nuno Santos now, it's just something different. It's a fresh pair of eyes. It's a different start. It's fresh opinions on your game, new training methods. Just a way to invigorate a player who is in his 30s, and sometimes I think you just need that. Otherwise, you go stale. And I think it's quite clear the timing wise. He had the elbow injury. He came back. I think it was towards the end of January, and then essentially within a few weeks, England was it 3-4 weeks? England were in their lockdown. So he didn't really get to benefit from that. I think it was only when they came back to training just ahead of the restart, he then started really working with Nuno Santos. I think you can see that work and what it's done for him. I think another helpful thing has been that Mourinho is certainly not averse to allowing his goalkeepers to boot the ball that little bit further. So pretty much you've seen a complete riddance now of the silly footwork mistakes he was making, getting caught in possession, booting short passes to the opposition. And once you took that out of his game, you're kind of realising that pretty much most of the rest of his game has been superb. A lot of the claiming of catches yesterday from crosses, he was very good. I just wanted to shout out for him. And I think something that you also notice when you're in the stadium, which probably with the crowds we weren't so kind of aware of, it's just how loud he is as a leader. He constantly talks. He's not Joe Hart levels, because that man just does not shut up. But Lloris, he is leading, encouraging, instructing, constantly Reggie, he keeps calling him Reguilon, as they all call him Reggie, telling him where to be, come back, make sure you're back, track back. Same with Son and Bale and players like that. He's constantly calling them back. And I think he's becoming... He's not becoming, because I think he's always been a leader, but it's just nice to actually see the impact he's making. You can hear it properly now. Another leader, Højbjerg, he's just superb again. Honestly, he won't be spoken about. When people look at the bargain signings of the summer, people will probably, pundits from outside the club, will probably forget he exists or even that he was signed. I think Højbjerg is right up there with the best signings of 2020. He has been phenomenal. When you look at it as a net spend of $3 million because Walker Peters was going in the other way, and fair play to Walker Peters, he's been superb for Southampton. Southampton will not look at that and think, oh, we got absolutely stuffed in that deal. Walker Peters has been superb. They've done very well out of the deal as well. But I just feel with Højbjerg, he's just exactly what Tottenham needed. He's so good. Again, yesterday, he was everywhere. He is a Duracell bunny. He doesn't stop. I'd say, if I'm going to be particularly harsh on Winks and Sissoko, he probably takes the best elements of what they do, with Winks's passing, pirouettes, Sissoko's energy and interceptions and dominance of the midfield, and probably maybe has less of the weaknesses that they have. And obviously he's got all of that combined in one. Very, very good again. And weirdly, this whole situation with Denmark is probably going to work in Tottenham's favour, in that, if you haven't noticed, Denmark is now a non-corridor country. I think it's something to do with a different strain of the coronavirus there, which means that everyone, including elite sportsmen, if they go to Denmark, have to now isolate for 14 days. So the Premier League, I spoke to the Premier League yesterday, and they're advising Premier League clubs to not release their Danish players for duty for the matches in Denmark. Denmark have got 2 games there, a friendly and a Nations League game. So what Spurs have done with Højbjerg, they've kind of discussed it between them. So what's going to happen is he's going to stay at Hotspur Way, work, rest, recover. He will miss the friendly, which he wasn't probably necessary or needed anyway. He was suspended for the Nations League game anyway as well. So that means he gets a good old 10-day rest or so. And then he will head over to Belgium, because Denmark are playing Belgium in their second Nations League game. And obviously being in Belgium is fine. It's going to be very interesting to see. I think all the Premier League players pretty much will join up for that game, Danish players. It's going to be interesting to see what they do, because by logic, all of the players who have been in Denmark are then going to be playing in Belgium as well. They're going to come across. So you'd imagine there's going to have to be testing galore to make sure that there's not an issue there. Footballers in a bubble. So it's unlikely anyway, But you'd think they'll be testing galore. A lot of Premier League clubs will kind of demand that that's going to happen to make sure their players aren't going to get infected, But I think that will benefit Spurs. I think it will benefit Højbjerg because he's got such an all-action game. I think just to have him have a bit of a rest is no bad thing whatsoever. But yeah, he was superb. Honestly, I could wax lyrical about Højbjerg for ages. I asked Sissoko the other day what it was like kind of playing alongside him, and he just spoke about his energy and just how good he is and what he does and the way he plays and just the way he operates alongside him. It's very, very, he's a leader. I think he's a general that Tottenham really needed. So, after the international break, we get this over and done with. You're probably like me, I'm sure many of you, in my views on international breaks, especially at this time. It's like, what a time to have international matches, especially the friendlies. I get the Nation League stuff was all kind of pre-programmed and ready to go, but friendlies, adding another game in a time when you just want as little mixing of players as possible, is mad for me. But once Spurs come back, they got big games, big matches. Manchester City straight off at home. And we're just talking about the Premier League now. You've got Manchester City at home, Chelsea away, Arsenal at home, Palace away, Liverpool away, Leicester at home. You've got the Carabao Cup quarter-final at Stoke. Then you've got Wolves away, and then I think it's Fulham at home to finish out 2020. What a run of fixtures. For me, that's interspersed as well with the rest of the Europa League matches to finish off that group. But for me, that defines your season. That absolutely defines what happens in the rest of the season. If Spurs aren't in great attacking form, they're not the team that were blowing away other sides with goals, but they are going to go into those games with confidence from grinding out those results and also a confidence in their defence again, which is something they haven't had. Having clean sheets does that. And obviously, going against Man City, you're going to need that because we know what Spurs-Man City matches have been like. They will fly at Tottenham from all angles, but Tottenham will point to the fact that they've also frustrated City a lot of times. Last season, the win at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, even Pochettino in his tough last few months, I think they still got, was it 2-2, wasn't it, there at the Etihad as well. They are a little bit of a bogey side for City, so there's no reason they should fear them at all. And if Spurs can come through this run of games, then, still kind of there and thereabouts up there, I think they can take massive confidence in 2021 because this will be the making of them, as it were. It will decide really what they're going to be fighting for in the final months of the season. I think it could be that with the league so tight now. I think it just needs. So many teams are messing up one game for another. Spurs are unbeaten since their opening game of the season. If someone like Tottenham can put together a run of consistent form, there's no reason why they can't start actually taking a bit of a grip on things. And that applies to any team that wants to do that. It's not just Tottenham. But we'll see. It's quite interesting that Mourinho keeps trotting out this phrase that you just hear every single player repeating in an interview. There's no dissent or movement away from it, whether it's on Ndombele talking, whether it's Sissoko, Kane, Bale, Doherty, Højbjerg, Lloris. It's the same message. We focus on this game. It's a cliche. It is a cliche. It's what players have always said. But you always get the sense that with Tottenham, they were kind of thinking ahead. Oh, if we win this, then we could do that, blah, blah, blah. But with this real setup, everyone, you hear them, Dier said it again the other day, we only care about this next match. That's honestly, we're blanking out whatever comes after it in our heads. And I think that's a very clear Mourinho thing of trying to remove that complacency from Tottenham. This thought of, all right, well, we should win this one. So let's start thinking, I don't want to injure myself maybe for the game against City. Or, we should tonk this team, no worries at all. Then we'll go on a run and we'll be up the table, blah, blah, blah. Just as he said yesterday, Mourinho, we win the next game. We go to win the next game. And if we keep with that attitude, then we'll look at where we are later in the season and see where we've ended up. It's very simple, yet it could be really effective, just this mentality. And honestly, you watch any interview with a Spurs player, they all say the same thing. I found it really, really interesting. So, yeah, it's a biggie to come. I'm aware I've waffled over the about to pass the 40-minute mark, so I won't keep you much longer. Hopefully we've kind of properly dissected that game and what's happened so far and what's to come. And like I say, we'll keep an eye on the Ndombele and Bale little knocks that they both have. My gut tells me hopefully they're not too bad. Both players seem to be moving well enough, but as I say, it's Tottenham Hotspurs. You can never rule out. If I hear anything, obviously I'll let you know. I'm technically off now. This year's been so weird that I haven't really had much time off during it until I think I had a week off a couple of weeks back. So I kind of eyed up this international break for a chance to have a little bit of a rest. So I'm going to do that, switch off for a little bit. What I might do next weekend, I might do a Q&A. So if you want to leave your questions underneath this in the comments, please do. And I'll try and draw up 20-25 of them that I'll run through next weekend and try and answer as many as possible because we haven't done one of those in ages. And it's something different during an international break. But other than that, I'm just going to switch off, watch a lot of movies, probably watch some international games. Obviously, they're not quite as thrilling as the Premier League is. But yeah, it's a really interesting time for Tottenham. Second in the Premier League, top of the Europa League group they're in, quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup with the FA Cup still to come. They're in a good place. And they've got a lot of good players. And I'm really interested to see what happens with the extra leaders in the team, the form that they're in. And they've got a manager who, let's be honest, not only has he been there and done it, he's won the T-shirt. You know, he's won it all repeatedly. If anyone knows what they're doing, it's Jose Mourinho. It might not always be pretty on the eye, but he knows how to win matches and silverware. So I'm quite, after a pretty rubbish 2020 for many people. Let's hope 2021 is something that we can really look forward to. But they've got to get through these 6 weeks or so of matches to come, 8 weeks or so. And it's going to be thrilling. And obviously I'll be with you every step of the way, hopefully. I shall catch you later. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, and she'll talk to you soon. Bye.